Thomas Williams was a man of considerable wealth. A successful businessman, he ran a global empire that spanned across multiple industries, from technology to real estate. He had everything he could ever need: money, power, influence, but it never seemed to fill the empty space inside him. Life, despite all its luxuries, felt hollow. The only thing that kept him grounded was his son, Ethan. Ethan, at just 8 years old, was born with a condition that affected his ability to communicate and move freely. Thomas loved his son more than anything, and despite the challenges that came with Ethan's disability, he made sure to surround him with the best care. However, there was a part of Thomas that wished he could give Ethan a life that didn't feel defined by his disability. He wanted Ethan to experience the world in a way that felt real, not through the lens of doctors and therapies, but through the simple pleasures that any child should enjoy. On one particular afternoon, Thomas decided to take Ethan out for lunch to a small cafe in the heart of the city. It wasn't the kind of place he would typically choose. He usually preferred high-end restaurants where everything was pristine and polished. But today, he wanted something different. He wanted to step away from the glitz and glamour of his world, even if just for a few hours, and experience something simpler. Ethan, as usual, was excited about the idea. The moment they walked into the cafe, the cozy warmth of the space seemed to wrap them in comfort. As they made their way to a table near the window, Thomas noticed the waitstaff bustling around, taking orders, refilling drinks, and making sure everyone was well taken care of. The cafe had a charm to it, with soft jazz music playing in the background and the smell of freshly baked bread and coffee filling the air. It was the kind of place where people could relax and just enjoy their meal without feeling rushed. Soon, a young woman with dark hair tied back in a ponytail approached them. She wore a simple uniform, nothing fancy, but her smile was warm and genuine. Her name was Emily, and she greeted Thomas and Ethan with a friendly nod. "Good afternoon. What can I get for you today?" she asked, her voice soft and caring. Thomas noticed the way Emily immediately addressed Ethan, speaking to him with the same level of kindness she gave him. She didn't treat him like he was different, even though she could clearly see that he had trouble holding his fork and needed help eating. Emily didn't hesitate for a moment. The days after their lunch at the cafe seemed to pass in a blur for Thomas. He found himself thinking about Emily more often than he cared to admit. At first, it was a passing thought, a brief moment of reflection, but soon, the idea of her kindness began to occupy his mind more frequently. He couldn't stop wondering about her life. What brought her to work at the cafe? What were her dreams, and what did she want from life? These questions lingered, and with each passing day, they became harder to ignore. As the weeks passed, Thomas found himself returning to the cafe almost daily. Each visit brought Emily's family's journey through culinary school had been nothing short of transformative. From the first day of feeling lost in the world of professional kitchens to now, she had grown immensely, not just in her cooking skills, but in her confidence and her belief in herself. The road had been challenging, and there had been countless moments when she doubted her abilities, but now, as she stood at the threshold of graduation, she couldn't help but look back at how far she had come. As graduation day approached, Emily felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was the culmination of years of hard work, late nights, and sacrifices. She had come to know her classmates well, and while they had all been on their own journeys, they shared a common bond and unwavering passion for food. Emily had found a place in that world, one that she never thought was possible when she first stepped foot in the cafe all those months ago. Her final project was to create a 3-course meal that showcased her skills, her creativity, and her understanding of the techniques she had learned. Emily put everything into it. The dishes were a reflection of who she had become, not just as a cook, but as a person. She incorporated flavors from her childhood, dishes that her family had made for years, with modern twists she had learned in school. The food was simple, yet elegant, heartfelt yet refined. It was a true reflection of her journey. On the day of the final presentation, Emily stood in front of her instructor and classmates, her heart racing. She carefully plated each dish, her hands steady despite the nerves coursing through her. As she presented her meal, she spoke about her inspirations, about her family, about her sister Sarah, and about the dreams she had carried with her all this time. She didn't just want to cook for the sake of cooking, she wanted to tell a story with her food, to bring people together, just as food had done for her family over the years. The room fell silent as her instructor took the first bite. Emily held her breath, waiting for a reaction. The seconds felt like hours. Finally, her instructor looked up, a smile slowly spreading across their face. "This is exceptional, Emily," the instructor said. "You've captured something truly special here. There's heart in this dish. There's passion." The praise was everything Emily had hoped for, but what mattered most to her was not the grade, but the feeling that she had finally found her place in the world. She had done it. She had proven to herself that she could follow through on her dreams, no matter how impossible they once seemed. After the ceremony, Emily took a moment to call her sister. Sarah had been her biggest supporter throughout this entire journey, and Emily knew how much it meant to her that Emily was about to graduate. She had missed many doctor's appointments, many nights at home, and many family dinners, but now, it was all coming to fruition. "Sarah, I did it," Emily said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I graduated. I really did it." From the other end of the phone, Sarah's voice was full of pride and joy. "I knew you could. You've always been strong, Emily. I'm so proud of you. This is just the beginning." Emily felt a rush of love for her sister, and for everything they had gone through together. It was not just her success, it was theirs. Together, they had navigated the challenges, and together, they were moving forward. Emily's dreams were no longer something she kept in the back of her mind. They were real, and they were within reach. In the weeks following graduation, Emily began to plan her next steps. She had learned so much, but she knew there was still more to experience. She wasn't ready to open a restaurant just yet, she needed more experience, more time to perfect her craft. But she was determined. She started applying for jobs at various restaurants, determined to find a place where she could continue to learn and grow. It didn't take long before Emily received an offer from a well-known restaurant in the city. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was exactly what she needed: a chance to work alongside experienced chefs, to learn from the best, and to hone her skills. She accepted the offer without hesitation, knowing that this was another step in the right direction. As she started her new job, she felt the familiar rush of excitement mixed with nervousness. The kitchen was fast-paced, and the pressure was intense. But Emily thrived in that environment. She found herself taking on new challenges, pushing her limits, and gaining confidence with each dish she prepared. The more she learned, the more she realized how much she still had to discover. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt inspired. She could see the path ahead of her more clearly now. One evening, after a particularly challenging shift, Emily received a message from Thomas. It had been a while since they had spoken, but she had kept him updated on her progress, and he had always been supportive. His message simply read, "How's everything going? I hope you're doing well." Emily smiled as she typed her reply. "It's going great. I'm learning so much, and I'm finally working in a real kitchen. It's a dream come true." Thomas's response came quickly. "I'm so proud of you, Emily. I knew you had it in you. Keep pushing. You've got this." Those words meant more to Emily than she could express. Thomas had been the catalyst for everything that had changed in her life. His belief in her had given her the confidence to believe in herself. It wasn't just the financial support that had mattered, it was the emotional encouragement, the belief that someone saw her potential. That had made all the difference. As Emily continued to work in the restaurant, she began to save money for the future. She knew that one day, she would open her own restaurant. It was a dream that had once seemed impossible, but now, it felt like a matter of when, not if. Every day, as she worked, she thought about what kind of restaurant she wanted to create. She envisioned a place where people could feel at home, where they could experience the warmth and love that food had always provided her and her family. She wanted to create a space that felt personal, where every dish had a story, where every bite brought people together. Months later, after much planning and saving, Emily began to make her dream a reality. She found a small location in the city, one that had character and charm. It wasn't large, but it was perfect for what she envisioned. With a combination of hard work, passion, and the support of a few close friends, she opened her restaurant. She named it after her sister, Sarah's Kitchen, in honor of everything they had been through together. The grand opening was a success. The restaurant quickly gained a following, known for its heartwarming dishes and the story behind them. Emily was able to do what she loved every day, creating meals that brought people joy. Her restaurant became a place where people could gather, celebrate, and feel at home. As Emily stood in the kitchen, preparing dishes for the evening rush, she couldn't help but smile. She had made it. She had taken the leap, and it had paid off. The road had been long, and there had been moments when she didn't know if she could keep going. But now, looking at everything she had built, she knew that she had done something incredible. She had turned her dreams into reality and nothing could take that away from her. Rst few weeks at culinary school were both exciting and overwhelming. The world she had stepped into was unlike anything she had ever known. No longer did she wake up at the crack of dawn to take care of her sister or rush to multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Now, she had time to focus on something that was purely for her, something she had dreamed about for as long as she could remember. But it was a world filled with challenges she had never imagined. There were new skills to learn, techniques to master, and long hours spent in the kitchen. At times, it felt like the pressure might break her, but she pushed forward. The first thing Emily learned was how hard it was to be a beginner again. She had been so used to being the one who managed everything, who took care of everyone around her. But here, in this new world, she was just another student, struggling to keep up with the pace of the lessons. The other students were eager, driven, and passionate. Some had been cooking for years, while others were simply there to explore a new path. Emily, on the other hand, felt like she had to prove herself, not just to the others, but to herself. She wanted to succeed, to show that she was worthy of the opportunity that Thomas had given her. The first few months were rough. She struggled with certain techniques, and at times, she found herself frustrated. There were days when she felt like she wasn't good enough, when she questioned whether she had made the right decision. But every time she thought about giving up, she remembered her sister Sarah, and the sacrifices she had made to get to this point. Emily had always been the one to keep things together, to take care of everyone else. Now, it was her turn to focus on her own future. She also remembered Thomas. His belief in her, his unwavering support, kept her going when things got tough. He had opened a door for her, and she wasn't going to let that opportunity slip away. She knew that no matter how difficult things became, she had to push through. This wasn't just about her, it was about proving that she could achieve something for herself, that she could live her dream and make something of it. As the months passed, Emily began to settle into the rhythm of culinary school. She became more confident in the kitchen, learning how to prepare intricate dishes and perfecting her skills. Her classmates, who had initially seemed intimidating, began to offer help, and slowly, she started to feel like part of the group. There were moments of laughter and moments of frustration, but through it all, Emily kept going. She was determined to succeed, no matter what. One of the things Emily quickly realized was how much she loved cooking. It wasn't just about the recipes or the techniques, it was the way food brought people together. There was something magical about creating a dish that made someone smile, something that could turn a simple meal into a special moment. Emily found herself lost in the process, the chopping, stirring, and seasoning, as if the kitchen was the only place where time didn't matter. It was the one place where she could escape the weight of her responsibilities, where she could just focus on the task at hand. But even as Emily grew more skilled, there were challenges she couldn't avoid. Her sister's health continued to decline, and Emily often found herself torn between her schoolwork and her family obligations. There were days when she had to leave class early to take Sarah to doctor's appointments or to care for her at home. The balance between her dreams and her reality was harder than she had imagined. But each time she faced a setback, she reminded herself why she was doing this. She had to keep going for herself and for Sarah. She couldn't let everything she had worked for go to waste. One evening, after a particularly challenging day in the kitchen, Emily found herself sitting alone in the small apartment she had rented for the year. Her phone buzzed, and when she saw the message from Thomas, she smiled. It had become a ritual for them. He would check in from time to time, just to see how she was doing. His messages were always filled with encouragement, reminding her that he believed in her. He never expected anything in return, just a simple acknowledgement that she was pushing forward. She typed back, "It's tough, but I'm getting there. I'm learning so much, and I'm starting to feel like I belong here." Thomas's response was quick, "I'm proud of you, Emily. Keep going. You've got this." Those simple words meant more to Emily than she could put into words. Thomas didn't just give her the financial means to attend school, he had given her the confidence to believe in herself. That was something no amount of money could buy. Every time she doubted herself, she thought of him and how much he had invested in her, not just financially, but emotionally. She wanted to make him proud, to prove that his belief in her had been worth it. As Emily continued her journey, she began to focus more on what she wanted to do with her newfound skills. She didn't just want to be another cook in a restaurant, she wanted to create something special. She dreamed of opening her own restaurant one day, one that reflected her love for food and her passion for bringing people together. It seemed like a far-off dream, but the more she learned, the more she began to believe it could be possible. She started to research different cuisines, learning about the importance of local ingredients and sustainable practices. Emily had always been resourceful, and now, she channeled that into her cooking, finding ways to create beautiful dishes using simple, accessible ingredients. One afternoon, as she worked in the kitchen preparing a dish for class, Emily felt a sudden rush of inspiration. She had been experimenting with flavors, trying to create something new, and suddenly, she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She started working on a dish that would combine her love for her family's traditional flavors with a modern twist. It was a dish that felt like home, but also like something she could serve to the world. She could already picture it, plated perfectly, ready to be served in her own restaurant. It was a dream, but for the first time, Emily felt like it wasn't so far out of reach. That night, as she lay in bed, her mind raced with ideas. She thought about the road ahead, about the work that still needed to be done. But for the first time in months, she felt a sense of hope. She was no longer just a waitress, struggling to make ends meet. She was a chef in the making, and she was ready to take on whatever came next. As she closed her eyes, Emily thought about everything that had led her here. The sacrifices, the hard work, the struggles, but also the support and belief she had found in people like Thomas. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could handle whatever came her way. I'm a little closer to understanding Emily, and the more he learned about her life, the more he felt compelled to do something meaningful. She had shared with him how she was trying to manage her sister's illness, working multiple jobs to pay for treatments and doctor's visits, while also caring for the small family they had left. Emily was a strong woman, but Thomas could see the toll it was taking on her. The strain was visible in her tired eyes, in the way she hurried through her day, barely pausing to take a breath. Thomas, on the other hand, had everything at his disposal. He had money, influence, and connections, but there was something hollow about it all. He had spent most of his life focused on business, working tirelessly to expand his empire, and while that had brought him financial success, it had not given him the kind of fulfillment he craved. He admired Emily's strength and determination, and in many ways, it made him reflect on the choices he had made in his own life. One evening, as Emily was closing up the cafe, Thomas lingered at his table, his mind racing with the thoughts that had been brewing for weeks. He knew he had to do something for her, something that would truly make a difference. The thought of simply offering her more money felt wrong. It would not address the real struggles she was facing. What Emily needed was an opportunity to change her life, a way to pursue her dreams without the constant worry of financial stress hanging over her head. After she finished cleaning up, Thomas walked over to her as she was about to head out the door. "Emily," he said, his voice filled with a sense of urgency. "I've been thinking a lot about your situation. You've shared so much with me, and I admire your strength more than you can imagine. But I know how hard it must be for you. I've been in a position where I could help, and I want to do that for you." Emily looked at him, surprised by his sudden shift in tone. "I appreciate that, but I'm fine. I really am. I don't want to impose or take anything from you." Thomas shook his head. "This isn't about charity. It's about giving you a real opportunity. I want to help you pursue something you've mentioned before, becoming a chef. You've got a natural gift, and I think you deserve the chance to do something you love, something that could change your life. So, I'm offering to cover your tuition for culinary school. It's not just a handout, it's a chance to build something for yourself, on your terms." Emily blinked in shock, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "Culinary school? I don't know if I can." "Please, just think about it," Thomas interrupted gently. "I know you're worried about your sister, about how you're going to make ends meet. But I want you to have a future where you don't have to struggle this much. You deserve that chance." For a moment, Emily stood there, speechless. She wasn't sure how to react. She had always worked hard for everything she had, never relying on anyone for help, and the idea of accepting such a generous offer felt almost too good to be true. She had dreamed of becoming a chef for years, but it had always felt like an impossible goal, something far out of reach. Her life was already so complicated, and the thought of taking on something new felt overwhelming. But there was something about Thomas's sincerity, the kindness in his eyes, that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, this was her opportunity to change her life. "I don't know what to say," Emily said softly, still in shock. "This is so much. I don't even know if I can accept something like this." Thomas smiled, his expression warm and understanding. "You don't have to say yes right away. Take your time. But know that the offer is there. I just want to help you achieve what you deserve." As she walked out of the cafe that evening, Emily's mind was swirling. The idea of going to culinary school, of pursuing a dream she had long since put on the back burner, felt like an impossible fantasy. But now, with Thomas's offer on the table, it seemed within reach. She thought about her sister, about the sacrifices she had made to keep their small family afloat, and about how hard it had been to keep going day after day. But this could change everything. Over the next few days, Emily found herself caught between two worlds. One was the world she had always known: hard work, struggle, and sacrifice. The other was the world Thomas had opened up to her, a world filled with opportunity and possibility. She wanted to believe in the dream of becoming a chef, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of her fears, her doubts, and the weight of her responsibilities. Finally, after much contemplation, Emily made a decision. She called Thomas to thank him for his generous offer and to let him know that she had decided to accept. She had spent the past few days talking to her sister, who encouraged her to take the leap, to do something for herself. "You've always put us first," Sarah had said. "Now it's your turn." When Emily met with Thomas again, her heart was racing. She had made her choice, and though she was nervous about what lay ahead, she felt a sense of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. Thomas, seeing the determination in her eyes, smiled and nodded. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he said. This is your chance to build something incredible. Don't worry about the details, just focus on your passion and your future. I'll take care of the rest." And so, Emily embarked on a new chapter of her life. She enrolled in culinary school, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. It wasn't going to be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But for the first time, she believed in herself and in the possibility that her dreams could come true. Thomas was a man who had everything: money, power, and influence. But despite all of his success, there was a quiet emptiness that seemed to follow him wherever he went. His relationship with his son, Ethan, had always been his anchor. Ethan's disability had made life more complicated than he could have ever imagined, but in many ways, it had also brought them closer together. They had built a life where their bond was unshakable, even if it wasn't perfect. But that day in the cafe, watching Emily interact with his son, had opened something inside Thomas, a realization that he hadn't been able to connect with people in the same way she had, even with all the wealth and status at his disposal. Over the next few days, Thomas returned to the cafe several times, making sure to sit in the same spot near the window where he could see Emily. He didn't come just for the food or the coffee, but because he felt drawn to her. It wasn't just her physical appearance, it was the way she moved, the way she cared for people, the ease with which she navigated the busy restaurant floor. He had never met anyone who seemed so genuinely unbothered by the weight of the world, and yet, from the way she spoke to her customers, it was clear that she understood life's struggles all too well. Each time he visited, Thomas tried to make small talk with Emily, asking her how her day was going or whether business had been slow or busy. He made sure to keep the conversations light, but with each interaction, he learned a little more about her. Emily's life, it seemed, was filled with challenges. She worked long hours, juggling multiple jobs to help support her family. Her younger sister had recently been diagnosed with a serious illness, and Emily was doing everything she could to help cover her medical bills. Despite these struggles, Emily always wore a smile, and Thomas could see how much she loved her family. It wasn't just about survival for her, it was about making sure that everyone around her had what they needed, even if it meant sacrificing her own comfort. One afternoon, as Thomas sipped his coffee and watched Emily assist a family with a young child, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. He had seen countless employees over the years, many of them kind, hard-working, and dedicated, but none of them seemed to have the same quiet strength that Emily possessed. She didn't seek attention, didn't need praise, and yet she made the world a better place every day with her presence. It was this selflessness that stuck with Thomas the most. He found himself thinking about the wealth he had accumulated over the years and how little it had really meant in terms of personal fulfillment. He had spent so much time chasing success, but he had never truly stopped to think about what it meant to live a life with purpose. As the days went on, Thomas's visits to the cafe became more frequent. He wasn't sure what exactly he was hoping to find, but he felt compelled to keep coming back. One day, after observing Emily interact with yet another customer, he decided to stay a little longer and catch her before she left for the day. He didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to know more about her. He wanted to know how she managed to stay so positive despite the difficult circumstances she faced. He wanted to know what kept her going. Emily, wiping down the tables and preparing to leave, noticed Thomas sitting by the window, his gaze focused on her. She smiled politely, thinking he was just another regular customer who enjoyed the quiet atmosphere of the cafe. But Thomas was different. There was a curiosity in his eyes that she had noticed before, and today, it seemed more intense than usual. He waved her over, and she walked over to his table, her steps light and measured. "Is everything okay?" she asked, setting down a water glass in front of him. There was a softness to her voice that made him feel at ease, and he realized how rare it was to encounter someone so genuine. "I was wondering," Thomas began, choosing his words carefully, "about how you manage everything. You seem so calm and collected, no matter what's going on around you. I've been thinking a lot about how we interact with others. I've never met anyone quite like you." Emily's smile faded just slightly. She wasn't used to being put on the spot like this, especially by someone like Thomas, whose reputation in the business world was known far and wide. But she appreciated his honesty. "I don't know about being special," she said with a shrug. "I just do what I can. My family needs me, and I need to keep going. There's not much else to it." Thomas felt a strange sense of admiration for her simplicity. It wasn't that she was hiding anything, it was that she was so comfortable in her own skin, so accepting of the struggles she faced, that it was impossible not to feel drawn to her. He wanted to know more. He wanted to understand her resilience, the way she managed to keep pushing forward even when life seemed unfair. Over the next few weeks, Thomas began to visit the cafe more regularly. He would sit, order his coffee, and strike up casual conversations with Emily. Slowly, she began to open up about her life. She told him about her younger sister, Sarah, who had been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. Emily had been her main caregiver, taking on the responsibility of doctors' visits, treatment schedules, and everything else that came with managing a serious illness. Emily's father had left when she was younger, and her mother had passed away a few years ago. It was just her, Sarah, and the small community of people who helped them get by. Through these conversations, Thomas began to understand the weight of Emily's life. He saw how hard she worked just to keep things together. And yet, despite it all, Emily never asked for help. She simply kept going, one day at a time. Thomas admired her more than he could say. In some ways, her struggles mirrored his own, though he would never openly admit it. He had spent years building an empire, but in many ways, he had forgotten what it meant to live simply and to focus on the people who mattered most. One evening, as Thomas sat at the cafe, watching Emily prepare to close up for the night, he realized that he wanted to do something for her. He didn't know what exactly, but he knew he had the means to help. He had the resources to make a difference in her life, and for the first time in years, he wanted to make a change that mattered not just for his own family, but for someone else's. Ntly placed the napkin over Ethan's lap and began explaining the menu to him in a calm and patient manner, as if she had done this 1,000 times before. As she worked with Ethan, helping him pick out his meal and ensuring he was comfortable, Thomas couldn't help but watch her. There was something about her demeanor that made her stand out. She didn't just do her job because she had to, she genuinely cared. Her actions were so effortless, so natural, and yet they showed such a level of empathy that Thomas was almost taken aback. Ethan, despite his disability, had a playful nature. He enjoyed teasing his father, making little jokes when he could. Today, however, he seemed more relaxed, more comfortable with Emily's presence. She didn't make him feel self-conscious about his condition. Instead, she focused on what he could do, like the way he smiled when he picked out his favorite meal, a bowl of macaroni and cheese, with extra cheese, of course. It was a small moment, but for Thomas, it felt significant. He saw a side of Ethan he hadn't seen in a while, a child enjoying life without any shame or hesitation. After taking their order, Emily returned to the kitchen, and Thomas had a moment to reflect. There was something about her that struck him. Here she was, working hard in a cafe, possibly juggling multiple jobs, yet she had this ability to make even the most difficult situations feel manageable. Ethan, who often struggled with social interactions, seemed completely at ease with her. It was clear to Thomas that Emily didn't just have a talent for her work, she had a gift for making people feel seen, heard, and respected. Thomas was no stranger to kindness. He had given away millions to charity over the years, funding hospitals, schools, and orphanages. He had met many people who had made significant impacts on the lives of others. But there was something different about Emily. She wasn't trying to change the world on a grand scale. She was making a difference, one small act at a time. She didn't need the recognition, the fame, or the fortune. She was just doing what came naturally to her. As he sat there watching her interact with other customers, Thomas found himself reflecting on his own life. His wealth had brought him many things, but it hadn't brought him the kind of genuine connection that Emily seemed to share with everyone around her. She didn't have the privileges he enjoyed, but she made the best of every moment. Thomas felt a pang of guilt. He had all the resources in the world, yet he often found himself struggling with how to connect with people on a deeper level. It was something he had been searching for, but had never quite found. When their meal arrived, Emily carefully placed the dishes in front of them. As she helped Ethan with his food, Thomas felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. It wasn't just the meal or the excellent service, although both were more than satisfactory. It was the way Emily had made the entire experience feel human again. In a world where people often felt disconnected, where everything seemed transactional, Emily had brought something pure and unspoken to the table: kindness. After they finished eating, Thomas didn't want to leave just yet. He lingered, thinking about how to express his appreciation for Emily's kindness. It wasn't something he did often. He didn't usually go out of his way to thank people who worked for him or provided a service. But this felt different. It wasn't about the meal or the service. It was about how Emily had taken the time to make Ethan feel like more than just a boy with a disability. She had made him feel like a normal child again, with hopes and dreams, just like any other kid. As the two left the cafe, Thomas made a mental note to come back again, not just for the food, but to find a way to thank Emily for what she had done. Little did he know, that simple act of kindness was going to change both of their lives forever.